Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Infrastructure, Transportation, and Safety Subcommittee. I'd like to call to order the meeting. We're gonna have a land acknowledgement first, followed by a moment of silent reflection, and then after that, the respectful conduct statement. We acknowledge that Stratford is situated on lands shared between many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples today. As a city, we have a responsibility for the stewardship of the land on which we live and work. Today, we acknowledge the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and the neutral Algonquin peoples, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to bring work and play on this land. Respect in Stratford. The Corporation of the City of Stratford is committed to providing quality service to all members of the public, council, and our employees. Our goal is to promote a safe, healthy, respectful, inclusive, and positive environment. We have a responsibility to treat people with respect by creating safe and respectful spaces. It is the city's expectation that all residents will be respectful. Item 2 is disclosure of peculiar interest. Seeing none. Item 3 are delegations. We have none scheduled. Item 4 is the report of the municipal bylaw enforcement officer. 4.1 is fence and hedge bylaw amendment report for 126 Britannia Street. And before we get started, I maybe will introduce a few people around the table here. So we've got Mr. Connor Oxelson, who is our acting chief official, Neil Rusbicki, who is our municipal enforcement officer, and on the far side we have Director Adam Bedridge, Director of Planning. So the way we're going to proceed is that we're going to hear the report, and then we will hear from Ms. Robertson after that. So if you want to go ahead and if we would that, that'd be great.
So November 18th, 2015, City of Stratford received a complaint regarding a hedge being overgrown in the corner of Mercer and Britannia. Normally that complaint was kind of put on hold at the moment due to the weather conditions. An inspection was conducted on April 10th, which did confirm that the hedge wasn't causing obstruction in the side triangle. Due to the obstruction, again, there was actually another re-inspection done to verify that violation on a later date. It was deemed to be confirmed that it is a violation in a hedge defense bylaw order was issued to the property owners of Britannia. During that time, there was no compliance met. I did speak to the hired contractor that the property owners did hire. They tried to mitigate the situation by trimming back the hedge, which unfortunately did not work, and further remediation was required. Due to CSI construction of that intersection. Additionally, there was a meeting. I did do the inspection on the property, spoke to one of the property owners, notified them that there was still a violation on that property and that further remedial was required. There was also another meeting on that property with the manager of public works as well, which also confirmed it was a violation and it was a site obstruction causing basically an unsafe situation. And since then, there's been no action taken or during the hedge.
Are there any questions from the members of the subcommittee? Yes, or should we get from Ms. Robertson first? Okay, so in order for Ms. Robertson to speak, we need a motion that she would be heard. Ask the hunter, will that, and all in favor? Hey, come on up.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
I'm Ruth Robertson, I'm here with my husband Ian. I'm quite nervous, so you have to forgive me, I'm trying to project my voice because I don't have a microphone here. And just having heard the report, of course, our argument is not that our hedge complies. You know, I mean, of course, the hedge violates this fine, but we just have a couple of points that we would like to make. And I want to thank you all for taking the time to consider our appeal. We have lived at 126 Britannia Street for 21 years. And the hedge in question on our property was at least 10 feet tall when we moved to this location. So we estimate that the hedge is probably about 30 years old. We have two areas of concern that we'd like to address with you today. Issue number one is on May 13th, we received a letter from the Stratford Bylaw Department advising us that our hedge violated bylaw number 128-2003 and it needed to be trimmed to 0.75 meters or 2.46 feet by May 24th. In consultation with local arborist Kim Lott, we were informed that doing this would kill the hedge entirely. In other words, we were given 11 days to completely destroy a 30-year-old hedge on our property, or we would be, and I quote, guilty of an offense, unquote. I'm just going to repeat that. We were given 11 days to completely destroy a 30-year-old hedge on our property, or we would be guilty of an offense. This was the first notice we received advising us of the violation, and the only way we could stop the destruction of our hedge was to spend $705 on this appeal. So our question is this really how the city of Stratford wants to treat its residents? We communicated our displeasure regarding the threatening tone of this letter in several emails to Mayor Ritzma. On May 22nd, we received a reply by email from the mayor stating, and I quote, "So sorry to hear that, Ruth. We can certainly do better," unquote. We are hoping the result of this appeal, with just regards to this letter, is that the city of Stratford and the bylaw department are able to take Mayor Ritzman's advice and do better. Our second area of concern is regarding the hedge itself. As previously stated, the hedge is approximately 30 years old and would have been in violation of this bylaw for most of that time, at least the 21 years we've lived there. In our written appeal to the 5 members here, although one is missing, we enclose pictures of many corners in our neighborhood that also violate this bylaw, some of which pose far more serious visibility problems than ours. And I hope you all took the opportunity, which I invited you to do, to visit the corner of Mercer and Britannia Streets to see for yourselves that one is able to clearly see past our hedge and down a block to Churchill Circle without causing any danger to vehicles or pedestrians. We have the following 3 questions for this appeals committee. When there are dozens of corner properties in Stratford in violation of this bylaw, including a whole lot of city-owned properties, the worst one being at the bottom of Allen Street when you're trying to turn right and there's a bridge on St. Vincent. Why is the bylaw department not taking more action and chopping down all of the offended corner hedges, fences, and beautiful landscaping throughout the city that violate this bylaw? One of the most perplexing things for us during this, number 2 is the second question. If the corners violating the bylaw pose such a danger. Oh, I did that one. Number 1, maybe someone I missed. When there are dozens of corner properties in Stratford in violation of this bylaw, including many city-owned corners, why are we being singled out and punished with the threat of an offense? And then the second one was, why are they not taking more action and chopping down all the offended corner hedges? And then number 3 is one of the most perplexing things for us during this ordeal has been our communication with the Stratford Bylaw Department. We were informed by one of the city employees that the reason our hedge had come down is because it is dangerous. Then we were informed by another city employee that if we complained about any of these other so-called dangerous corners, they would be considered, and I quote here, vexatious complaints. We want to be very clear that it was never our intention to formally complain about other corner properties, but does it make sense to this appeals committee that citizens of Stratford would be considered vexatious just for doing the job that the bylaw department is clearly unable to do at every offending corner? It's quite obvious to us, and we hope to you, that this bylaw is unenforceable in a fair and equitable manner throughout the city. Our hedge adds to the heritage appeal of our neighborhood. It is environmentally sound to have greenery like this in our tree-lined city. I decided to Google the advantages of cedar hedges, and they offer year-round air filtration, carbon sequestration, erosion control, microclimate regulation, and wildlife habitat provision. On our property, that includes a lot of species of birds, and let me tell you, countless bunnies. We look forward to your thoughtful consideration of our appeal and hope that common sense will prevail. Thank you for your time.
Is any member any kind of question for him this time? Questions, comments? Thank you, Phyllis. Okay, so we have before us a staff recommendation. Were there any other questions, comments, concerns?
Thank you through the chair, and perhaps I could have addressed it while Ms. Robertson was in front of us, but I understand the response to the tone of the letter. Those documents are formal legal documents, and for whatever reason, our jurisprudence has said that we should put no emotion in our communications, and so they come across as being very cold. But I don't think there was any ill intent through that. That's just the nature of certain legal documents. They can come across that way.
Thank you.
Through the chair, if possibly the director could point out the way the bylaws are, the whole process of a bylaw complaint, how it comes to us and how those are managed a little bit.
So, through you, Madam Chair, to answer your question, the typical process is when we receive a complaint, then mainly our acting chief building official prepares the file as that. But typically the bylaw comes in, staff review the complaint, complaint comes in, staff review the complaint, assess it against our bylaws. Typically what takes place is consulting with the offending property owner and trying to educate and see if there's any opportunity to resolve the complaint or work with the complaint as the property owner to see if there's any opportunities to achieve compliance. As I understand, I believe the staff issued an order and perhaps they were thinking that there was not an opportunity to achieve compliance. The hedge was not on the property owner's property, but rather on the road allowance. I may defer some of those responses to your questions to staff.
Absolutely, I can step in through the chair. So yes, our director Petrovich is correct. That's our standard process. If you receive a complaint, the complaint is then assigned to a bylaw officer. The bylaw officer will visit the property, assess the complaint, assess if there's any violations of any of our bylaws. In this case, it would be the fence and hedge bylaw, and assess whether or not any remedial action is required. Typical process is we do try to contact the property owner prior to sending an order. In this regard, we were unable to contact the property owner, so we did send out the order, and that was the first they heard of it. We did receive the complaint or the response that they felt that it was a heavy-handed letter, but that's not direct pointed out. There are certain legalese we need to put in these letters, and they are official orders. So that was delivered. We did communicate with the property owner afterwards, including a site meeting on the property owner's property to discuss the fence and hedge and the overall complaint. Obviously, our primary goal is always voluntary compliance. And then when we cannot achieve voluntary compliance, we go through the process.
Councilor Jack.
Through the chair, just regarding the hedge, is there a certain amount that can be trimmed back and kind of save the hedge? I noticed that we did have 0.75 meters in there. Is there
something that kind of middle ground that can give us better sight, the safety piece isn't an issue.
Through the chair, to answer your question, so 0.75 meters is what's set through the bottom lot as a maximum. I can't speak, and you can see in the photos, I would say the bottom 0.75 meters of these hedges is mostly the trunk of the tree. There isn't a whole lot of hedge that would be left remaining. To find a happy middle ground is not really within our purview, because we have to stick with what the bylaw states as a maximum overall height.
Councilor Hunter?
Thank you. Through the chair, is this particular section of the bylaw because the hedge is on the road allowance? In other words, if it was back on the property line, is there a higher hedge allowed?
Through the chair, no, so it's not specific to the location of the hedge, when it comes to property. It's location of the hedge in regards to the sightline visibility triangles, which are set out in our zoning bylaw. So they have a setback from property line in each direction, and we draw this across the two to make a triangle, and it's everything within that location needs to be lower, whether it's on public or private land.
Thank you.
So I have a couple of comments. One is, I think it's very important to, before we issue an order, to follow up and try to in person contact the owner, knock on the door. I don't know, there must be a way that we can get in touch with people before they receive an order. So I just would like to encourage that part of the process would be mandatory perhaps, or would be for the most part complied with. I mean, I understand somebody's completely unreachable, they're never home, they're never, but you know, I think we should do whatever we can to meet up with the property owner, have a conversation first, and say this is what's coming. In this case, the owner is agreeing that perhaps the bylaw is in contravention, but there's an approach that we'd like to take that's maybe a bit friendlier, so that we can soften the legalese when it arrives. That would be great. I had a more technical question about the measurements. So we're measuring, I think I read 4 meters. I was trying to read the bylaw and kind of figure out how exactly this site triangle is measured. So you're saying it's from the edge of a property, because the way I read it, it's from a point of the intersection and also a roadside curb. So the reason I bring this up is because on the street which I live, people were parking right pretty much in the intersection. So when people were trying to make a right turn, there would be a parked car right there across from the stop sign. So myself and my neighbors asked if we could have a sign that complied with the bylaws. This bylaw says you have to park 10 meters away from an intersection. So a sign is installed, which is great. But surprisingly, the sign appeared very close to the stop sign. So when I talked to our engineers, I was like, why is it that the sign is not placed 10 meters from the stop sign, where the line would be painted for stop? And the engineer said, we don't measure it from that point, we measure it from the curve around the corner. So if I don't know where you took the measurements from, but I'm wondering if this is something where you need to have one of our traffic engineers go and have a look and do their own measurements and figure out, because if we're doing one bylaw one way and we're doing another bylaw a different way, measuring a corner, how we measure the corner from which curve, that provides some inconsistencies as well. So I feel like perhaps this should be deferred if it's possible. Director French.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I believe that might be a prudent approach to this. I think the intent of the bylaw is for traffic safety. If there's a technical non-compliance, but looking at it from a traffic engineering perspective, if there is a legitimate traffic safety issue with the location of the edge, that could be something that is reported back to the community. The way I sort of look at this is, it might be akin, this hearing process might be akin to a minor variance in the planning process, where if there's a technical non-compliance, but whether the intent and purpose of the bylaw, and in this case, it's a traffic safety perspective, if there's a visual sightline barrier, that might be, that component, that item might be something that the community might be interested in pursuing, and having this for on basis that the traffic engineer for satisfaction of either the chief building official or the director of building and planning. So whether it's staff, I think in this instance, it might be appropriate that city engineering staff are able to look at it, and if they're able to give a professional determination about whether the hedge does impose on visibility from a traffic safety perspective, that could be something that the community considers.
So just a further comment, I did attend the site and took a look. So my kids have recently been through driver training, and so when I was driving with my son, with my daughter, actually, she's more cautious, she would always stop at the marked stop sign with the line painted where you're supposed to stop. But in most cases, in the intersections in Stratford, you cannot see when you stop there. So most of us stop there, make sure there's no pedestrians, and then we roll forward so that we can actually see. So the other point that I'd like to make is that, you know, the rule is that the sight line from the spot, which spot exactly, and do people drive more safely just by instinct by pulling out a little further so they can see further. So I guess what I'm saying is, yes, we want to absolutely maintain safety, and the intent of the bylaw is safety, but in a lot of cases, I think many of the was given, the intersection can be used safely with a little driver's hat. So I guess I would like to hopefully encourage somebody to perhaps make motions to approve this so we can get a traffic engineering expert opinion on the violence.
I'm happy to make a referral motion to our engineering department and have them make a determination. And my only concern is I assume they're gonna follow whatever standard they follow, which is probably what's dictating where the lines go. So it might not provide relief, but I'm happy to get their opinion on this. Because I think we'd all like to let them keep the edge if there's a way to do it safely and in compliance or close enough compliance that we're happy.
Thank you. Councilor.
I'll start.
Thank you. So to the clerks, are we doing the right thing? As far as we're referring it over to staff, and then this appeal can come back to the chair, yes, okay. Are there any further comments, questions?
Just one question. So because the appeal fee's been paid and we're deferring this, there's not going to be any further cost to the applicants, I assume? Is that
Through the chair, correct.
Okay.
As of with respect to the appeal on it right now.
Yeah. Thank you.
Very good.
This is through the chair, just a question, is it worth better defining these terms within the, looking at the bylaw? And
For you, Madam Chair. This might be, depending on how it arises, this might be an opportunity where we will perhaps get this figured out one way or another, and perhaps we'll find out our bylaws that there might be some discretionary, there's some provisional type verbiage that and we're seeing some of that where things can be black and white, but they could be gray, provided X, Y, and Z are satisfied. And so we're seeing that in the way bylaws are written generally, because we know we're getting more flexible and we want to introduce flexibility and provisions to allow the intent and purpose of a bylaw to be met, but ways to safely and appropriately see alternatives.
I just wanted to make one last comment that I don't want our bylaw officer thinking we're ignoring your advice, because we've tasked you with keeping the city in compliance with the bylaws, and I think you've done that correctly. Yeah, but we'll take a look at it. So thank you for doing that.
Good point. Okay, so we have a referral motion on the floor. Okay, all in favor of the referral motion? That carries, thank you. Department, item 5 is department update, and there is a written statement. We don't really have anybody here to answer any questions on it, so if you have questions, we will email them to the director. Item 6 is advisory committee outside board minutes. There are none. Our next subcommittee meeting is on September 30th at 4:30, right here in council chambers. Item 8 is adjournment. By Council Hunter, all in favor? Carries. Thanks, everyone.